Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
Houston, this is Station. I am ready for the event.
Houston ACR, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call Station for a voice check.
Station, this is Houston ACR. How do you hear me?
Houston ACR, I have you loud and clear.
Please stand by for opening remarks.
Hawaii. I'm Jeff Standing Bear, the Principal Chief of the Osage Nation. We are so excited to hear from the first Native American woman in space, NASA astronaut Nicole Mann, live from the International Space Station. And we welcome everyone to join us for this out-of-the-world experience today. Now, here's our first question.
Hi, my name is Milana McGlaston. My question is, did you bring anything of your tribal heritage on this mission?
Hi, Milena. Actually, I did. I brought a dream catcher that my mother gave me, and I've had a dream catcher beside my bed ever since I can remember as a little child, and I still have one by my bed on Earth, and so I thought it would be very fitting to have a dream catcher with me in space, and I have it floating next to my crew quarters to remind me of home and keep my dreams good at night.
My name is Eugene K. Jacobs, and my question is, how do you make flying out of space?
So in space, we can make fire, but it has to be in a very controlled environment. And the really cool thing about flames in space is that instead of burning like you can imagine on a candle, they burn it in a sphere. And because we're in microgravity, heat doesn't rise. So that gives you that sphere. And microgravity allows us to study and better understand the components of combustion. And this could lead to more efficient engines on Earth, and will also help us learn how to control fires to stay safe in space.
My name is August Holding, and my question is, how many different languages are spoken between the members of Expedition 68?
Oh my goodness, there are a lot of different languages on the International Space Station. On the U.S. side, of course, we speak English, and we learn to speak Russian as well, so we can coordinate with our Russian colleagues. We have a Japanese astronaut on board, Koichi Wakata. He speaks Japanese, German, English, Russian, and probably a few more languages. And then, of course, the Russians all speak English and Russian, and some of them speak other languages as well. So it truly is an international crew.
Hi, my name is Warishi Hamilton. My question is, do you have your own room?
I do have my own room on the International Space Station, and it's called Crew Quarters, or CQ for short. It's the size of a phone booth, and really that's all the space you need. And because we don't have a floor or a ceiling in space, in Node 1, where we have the crew quarters, you have one person that sleeps on the deck of space station, somebody that's port, somebody that's starboard, and somebody that's overhead. And my room happens to be overhead.
My name is Mox Primo. My question is, do you wear a seatbelt on the space station?
When we launch to space, we wear a lot of seat belts. It's really a 5-point harness like you would see in a race car that keeps you safe during launch and also on reentry. But once you get to the space station, you don't need a seat belt. You're free to float around. Now, when it comes nighttime and you're ready to go to sleep, though, many people will bungee themselves to the wall of your crew quarters so that you don't float around in your little room while you sleep.
Hi, my name is Gianna Jones, and my question is, how long did it take to train for this mission?
So I showed up to NASA in 2013 and started training for a space flight. Those first 2 years, you go through astronaut candidate training, and it's general training on all aspects of the International Space Station, flying airplanes, learning how to do spacewalks, learning maintenance, and how to do science as well. And then, once you're assigned for a specific mission, you go into a dedicated training flow. Ours was a little bit over a year, and you learn specifically the spacecraft that you'll be flying to the International Space Station. And then you also practice some more specific science, spacewalks, and maintenance that you'll be doing during your time on board, which we call an expedition.
My name is Titan Harris, and my question is, can you play video games in space, and do you use the VR headsets on the station?
Well, unfortunately, I don't have a video game console up here. Otherwise, I probably would. But we do have some VR sets, and we actually use those for training and also for maintenance on the space station. And some of it isn't developmental. So there's a concept where if I have a VR headset, I can talk to controllers that are on Earth. So perhaps I'm on Mars, for example, and I need to do maintenance on something that I've never seen and never been trained on before. I can have the VR headset on, and then the engineers back on planet Earth can talk to me and identify areas that I need to access to do this maintenance and kind of walk me through a maintenance task. We also use virtual reality for some of our training in a spacewalk. If you happen to come off the space station, we have a little jetpack that you can fly back to the space station. So you can use this virtual reality to kind of visualize space. You're able to maybe experience some of this virtual reality back on Earth. NASA's done virtual reality tours of the International Space Station and actually a spacewalk with a virtual reality as well.
Hi, my name's Arian Jenkins, and my question is, do you follow the same flight pattern every day?
In general, we are 250 miles above Earth, and we're traveling at 17,500 miles per hour. So as we go around the planet, it takes 90 minutes for one revolution. And so we will cover a ground track. They'll go between 52 degrees north latitude and 52 degrees south latitude. So if you look at it out on a map, it looks like we do kind of like a sine wave or a squiggle over the planet. And the great part about that is you get to see all aspects of the planet between those two latitudes, day and night passes. That provides some great science for Earth observation. Unlike some satellites that are limited in their orbit or they may be stationary over Earth, we're able to get eyes on the majority of the planet.
My name is Izzy Holding, and my question is, does the crew rotate household chores while on duty?
Of course we rotate household chores. Just like at home, everybody needs to pitch in and do their job. So we clean on the weekends. We have about a 2 to 3 hour block dedicated for housekeeping, and each of the crew members rotate through their assigned modules for that week, and it's on a 4-week rotation. So last week I cleaned Node 3 and the PMM. Node 3 is the area where we have our hygiene stations, our toilet, as well as our workout machines, T2, which is the treadmill, and ARED, which is the weightlifting device. And so it's important that we keep all those areas clean.
My name is Anthony Cass, and my question is, can you listen to music up in space?
You absolutely can listen to music in space. It's one of my favorite things to do when I'm exercising. And so we have some connectivity to the internet, but we have to make sure we have good satellite passes during that time, so it can be a little bit spotty. But we also have playlists that we made prior to coming to space, and then we have a psychological support team at NASA that uplinks those playlists to space, so you can listen to some of your favorite music while you work out and make sure you get a good sweat in.
My name is Jimmy Walcott, and my question is, what's your favorite hobby to do in space?
There are so many fun things to do in space. I really enjoy microgravity and floating around and just experiencing it. It's like having a dream and you're flying, or it's like being Superman and jumping through the modules. But I'd say my favorite hobby is really just looking out the window. We have a cupola, which has a series of 6 windows that point at planet Earth. And it's just amazing to spend time looking out the window and seeing our planet pass by. The day passes are beautiful with the blue of the ocean and the white of the clouds, and you can see all types of different terrain and cities. But the night passes are just as spectacular. You can see lightning jumping from cloud top to cloud top at night. Sometimes you can see auroras on the poles, and you can actually see these beautiful city lights. It really gives you a great perspective of our beautiful planet.
My name is Joseph Judy, and my question is, how do you know when you've reached microgravity?
Well, you can tell when you've reached microgravity. So I launched as a part of Crew 5 on a Falcon 9 rocket, and it took us about 8.5 minutes to get to space. There's 2 stages of that rocket that take you into space. And that first stage is about 2.5 minutes. And when that first stage cuts off, you feel 0G, zero acceleration, for about 12 seconds before that second stage kicks in. That second stage accelerates you until 16,400 miles per hour. And when it cuts off, it's boom. You go from 4.5 Gs to 0 Gs instantaneously. First, you can feel your arms start to float up, and then your head. And even though you're strapped in that 5-point harness, you can tell that you're floating in your spacesuit. It's about another 10 minutes before you get to unbuckle and really float around. And that's the first time that you get to experience microgravity.
My name is Signe Redcorn, and my question is, do you ever run out of water?
Fortunately, we have a system on board the space station that reclaims most of the water. Through our sweat and humidity and also our urine, we're able to purify all of that and reclaim about 93% of the water. So we have some water that's still flowing up to station, but not as much, certainly, as if we were able to reclaim the water. Now, this technology is really cool, and we're trying to still improve upon it. When we go to a mission to Mars that's going to be about 2 to 3 years, we need to be able to reclaim about 97% of our water in order to fly enough water on that mission, since we won't be able to resupply. This technology is also transferred back to help humans on Earth. For example, in a natural disaster area where water's been contaminated, this type of technology can be used to purify the water to make it safe for drinking.
Hi, my name is Harley the cow, and my question is that if you go outside, do you float away?
So when we go outside, it's called an EVA, or a spacewalk, and we are very careful to tether ourselves to the space station. If you didn't, and you weren't holding on, you would certainly float away. So we have a safety tether that goes all the way back to the airlock, and that's always connected to us. It's on a reel, so if you fell off, it would reel you back in. But also, anytime you stop and you're going to take your hands off the railings on a space station, you put down another tether called a local. That way you can remove both hands and work on something. That local is only about 5 feet long, so it won't get you too far away from station. Now, if those failed or we didn't have them connected for some reason, like I mentioned before, you have that little backpack that's called a safer. It has some compressed gas inside, and that would give you the opportunity, a couple puffs of gas, to fly back to station. But we certainly train to that, but we never want to execute that. So we always check that we have our tethers down before we let go of station.
My name is Jesse McKibben, and my question is, what does the Earth's horizon look like from space?
The Earth's horizon from space is one of the most incredible things that I've seen, especially when we transition from sunrise to sunset, which we get to see every 45 minutes. You can see this thin layer of the atmosphere between planet Earth and the blackness of outer space. And as the sun sets, you can see dramatic colors change and shift, and the atmosphere goes from thick to very thin to total, absolute darkness. It never gets old to look at. I've tried to take pictures of it, but it's really hard to capture all those colors and the changing lights. It's something that's incredible to see with your eyes, and hopefully I can do a better job of capturing it via photographs so that I can share that experience with you back on Earth.
My name is Lily Harris, and my question is, whenever you first arrived into space, did you feel sick or fine?
So when you first arrive to space, it takes you a little bit of time to get used to microgravity. I remember unbuckling inside of Crew Dragon and getting out to float around, and your head kind of tumbles. It feels like you just kind of got off of a roller coaster. But your body adapts pretty quickly, and that's a small environment. Then the next day, when we got to the space station, you float out through the Node 2 hatch, and space station is huge compared to Crew Dragon. Space station is about the size of a 5-bedroom house, and you could actually find yourself in a module not able to touch any of the walls. And so sometimes when you float through a module, you'll find yourself upside down, and your brain will get flipped. And so you'll have to kind of reorient yourself in order to adapt to that new environment. Fortunately, I never felt sick on board the space station. Sometimes people get what's called space sickness, which is the same type of sickness perhaps you would feel after flying in an airplane or maybe driving in the car if you didn't feel good. But usually everybody's better after a day or two. It's amazing how quickly your body can get used to this incredible environment.
My name is Makani McGlaston, and my question is, how do you power the station?
So we have 4 sets of huge solar arrays that gather energy from the sun to power the space station. They also charge batteries. So when we're in sunlight and we can gather that energy from the sun, we use that to power station and to charge the batteries, so that when we are in eclipse and we don't have any sunlight available, then we'll use the power from the batteries to draw that to power space station. And that goes back and forth between the day-night cycles. Actually, we are during a time now where we're executing some EVAs or spacewalks to go outside and upgrade these solar arrays. We're deploying something called IROSA that's rolled out in front of the solar arrays. These are new and improved technology that can gather power more efficiently from the sun. We have a spacewalk coming up, actually 2 spacewalks coming up next week and then the following week.
My name is Tony DeLeon, and my question is, do you see meteors all the time?
So when you're in a night pass over planet Earth, you can see meteors, but you need to turn down all the lights inside of the space station and let your eyes adjust to see. We've actually had some cameras outside during some meteor storms that have been able to capture the meteors and to also gather some science. From the video, we can tell the size and the shape, and it allows scientists back on Earth to better understand the meteors and how they interact with our atmosphere on Earth.
My name is Kahika Jacobs. My question is, are you able to grow tomatoes in space?
That is a great question, because in just a couple days, spacecraft called SpaceX 26 is a cargo vehicle, and it's going to deliver a ton of science and food and supplies to the International Space Station. And on board that spacecraft is an experiment called Veggie 5. We're going to be growing dwarf tomatoes in space. We're going to be looking at different types of light and fertilizer and how that affects the growth and the taste of the tomatoes. We'll be able to figure that out, because at the end of growing the tomatoes, the astronauts will actually get to taste the tomatoes and rate their taste. This is important because when we go to Mars on a 2 to 3 year mission, the thermal stabilized food and freeze-dried food that we had will lose a lot of its nutritional value over that time. So we need to be able to supplement with freshly grown fruits and vegetables on that mission.
My name is Jaden Shaw, and my question is, how is the BEAM Bigelow Expandable Activity Module used on the station?
So BEAM was installed back in 2016, and it was supposed to be a 2-year tech demo to determine how this inflatable module would react to the environment of space. Astronauts used to go in every so often to take some measurements inside of the space station. We have some sensors to detect radiation and also make sure that the environment and that the air was okay. It performed incredibly, and so it's still on board the International Space Station. I had a chance to go inside a BEAM just last month. We store a lot of cargo inside. The hatch is normally closed, but sometimes we open it up to go inside and to retrieve some supplies from BEAM. This is a concept for a future type space station or maybe a floating laboratory that could be just this inflatable module. As you can imagine, that would be a lot less upmass to get to space, which would be a lot more cost effective. So hopefully we'll see some more inflatable modules in the future.
On behalf of the Osage Nation, I'd like to thank NASA astronaut Mann and her crew for taking the time to connect with our Osage youth today. Safe travels and best wishes. Wewana, which means thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoy the questions.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all the participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.